for it. But honestly, Nicole, for me personally, the ad just makes me sad. When I see that image of him talking in the car to my friend Scott Conroy about Joe Biden, I remember that, Lindsay. I know you do too. I got to spend time with him. He's a genuine, funny, earnest person. And you know, what has become of him in service to Donald Trump is really, really sad. And I think that's really why the ad is so good. You can feel the earnestness when he's talking about Joe Biden in that car interview, and you can feel the phoniness when he talks about Donald Trump now.
Tim O'Brien, back to the incumbent. More than one West Point grad last night on social media just couldn't help it. The implication, obviously, that Donald Trump lost sight of the fact that he is at the U.S. Military Academy. His audience, by definition, is made up of people who just became second lieutenants in the U.S. Army and are now going to be deployed in all kinds of roles around the world in service to their country. And this particular USMA grad thanked the president for his courage in dealing with the slippery ramp.
Well, you know, look, the irony of irony is probably too light a word, but Donald Trump sought 5 draft deferments to avoid serving in Vietnam. I don't think he really understands what it means to put on a uniform and serve the country. I don't think he's someone who would show great courage in battle. And he's on a stage praising these young men and women for possibly putting themselves in the way of in harm's way to make the ultimate sacrifice, something he would absolutely never do. It is just not that courageous to have to walk down a platform. And as I think Tim's group and their ad shows, that Donald Trump right now, who is in public, is not the same Donald Trump in 2016. Donald Trump in 2016 was on message, immigration and trade, and he trafficked in racism and race baiting to get those messages out, but he stayed focused on messages. The Donald Trump of 2020 is focused on performance art, and he's trailing badly in the polls. And I think we're 4.5 months away from Election Day, and I think you're going to start to see the Republican Party and people like Mitch McConnell have to make hard choices about how strongly they back him, especially after performances like he gave at West Point.
And Tim Miller, to Nicole's point, no matter what other spots get produced this cycle, you have left us with what, to my mind, is the indelible
profiles and courage at this point. But I do wonder if we can start to attract Republicans who think, you know, who do the right thing for the wrong reason, their political benefit, unlike what Lindsay did, which was the wrong thing for the wrong reason, which was pivot to Donald Trump to save himself.
It's an endlessly fascinating conversation. Thanks to Tim Miller and Tim O'Brien. And to you, Brian, obviously I'm being facetious about there being a labor ward in the White House, but the point is you can get a lot of medical care on the White House complex. And I was just a staffer. There are more robust services available to the president himself. But as a staffer, there was counseling available, there was immunizations available, there are obviously people that can do temperature checks. The idea that the president has this still unexplained trip to the hospital in the midst of conduct that justifies 2 print stories in both the Washington Post and the New York Times about whether or not he's healthy is just a stunning state of how opaque his health still is to the American people.
You can do at least minor surgery on Air Force One. And if that's true on a flying 747, the general public can just imagine the medical facilities at the disposal of the White House physician, including testing, diagnostics, machines, and what have you. I'm going to proceed to watch the rest of your broadcast and do a quick fact check on what knocked us off the air earlier.
Good luck with your IT needs. I know that's part of the privilege of getting to work from home. So we'll be watching you at 11. Thanks for joining us today. When we When we come back, COVID cases are spiking across the Sun Belt, and now New York's governor is talking about the possibility of a second shutdown. The latest on the coronavirus pandemic is next.
Solidarity with the movement. Wouldn't that be mighty powerful as well?
I mean, I'm open to that. Like, I have ultimate respect for LeBron. You never hear me say nothing bad about LeBron, and I know he's in this fight with me. I know it's a lot of guys that's in this fight with me that wants to play the game. But me personally, I look at it different. I play the game of basketball for love. Yeah, for the love of the game. Yeah, it turned into a job and changing my life, and I definitely was always appreciative of that. But I play the game over love, and I know what means more than a game. And at this point, they can do a lot of things. You're right, all the eyeballs will be on the NBA. But the past has told me what is going to be different. Like, it will be watered down. This moment we have came from organic pain. This moment that we have now came from people really being hurt. The world is tired of hate outweighing love. Love is finally starting to win over hate, and the world, 18 countries, 50 states, all protested at one time. We've never seen this. So everybody's tired. It's not just me, because it's personal with me. Everybody's tired, and this moment that we never had. So I hope that the game can continue, and we still can keep this moment, but I've never seen it done in the past, so there's no reason for me to believe it can be done now.
Let me ask you this, Stephen, because if they do end up playing the games, and I was looking back, just reminding myself in the wake of Eric Garner's death, remember those guys were wearing, the I Can't Breathe shirts, or at one point Dwayne Wade's sneakers, which, millions of people see these things, said Black Lives Matter, or you can imagine some of these guys could really take a stand and kneel. Is there anything or any conversation you may have with them? What would you like to see if they go ahead and play?
Well, I'm just like them. I don't have the answers, but a T-shirt never got us justice. A T-shirt never got us justice. A T-shirt never got us to this point. Those people in Minnesota that were really hurting, that were really feeling pain, that were tired of seeing people get murdered by police for the 10th, 15th time in so many cases I've heard of from being in Minnesota, they're tired. That was their real pain. That was real cry. That was real cries out for change. And the world followed suit. So, I mean, nobody has the answers. I know I don't, but I know I'm standing on the side of right and love, and I'm standing on that.
I appreciate that. I want to get to something. This is President Trump. President Trump, as we know, has been very vocal about his disdain, is one word, for NFL players kneeling during the national anthem in the past. But I want to play a clip for you. This is Ben Carson, his HUD secretary, talking to a conservative radio host, Hugh Hewitt, about kneeling this morning. Listen to this.
So is there any chance you might persuade the president that he ought not to be upset with players kneeling during the national anthem?
Well, I don't think he has manifested as much animosity in that region lately, and I think we just continue to work with him. He'll get there.
It's those three words, he'll get there. This is the president of the United States, Stephen. Do you think it's too late for him to get there? I mean, I'm looking at your face, I'm looking at your smile. You tell me what you're thinking right now.
It's funny because what does that mean? It's funny because I actually got a text from Ben Carson, somebody close to him, about meeting with me to meet with Trump about change. That's funny, and that goes to show that it's a joke to them. It should be. It's a million people that stood on the side of saying he should kneel, but they got educated. They listened. They opened their heart and their ears to listen to why people were kneeling. Now they understand. For him to be the president of the United States that represents us and still don't get it, that shows you how much work we got to do.
What was your response to that text to meet with President Trump, to maybe educate him a little bit?
The same text I got when I heard what Ben Carson just said. The same as I just laughed at it. Little old me. I don't know why.
Would you do it? Would you go meet with him if you had the opportunity? He is the president.
I'm not going to be a Kanye and be there for a photo op. I'm not doing that. I know people that he can really meet with, that know what changes need to be done, that know what laws and policies need to be changed. I'm not that guy. I'm not a politician. I know people who have those answers, and that's the people he need to meet with, not me.
Stephen Jackson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any minute, we are expecting a news conference out of Atlanta after the police shooting of 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks, who died. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms will be speaking. We will bring that live the second we see her behind that podium. We'll be right back.
When the world gets complicated, a lot goes through your mind. With Fidelity Wealth Management,
situation here in terms of the numbers, especially of our critical beds.
I believe Donald Trump has said in the last hour that if we stop testing, the numbers would go down. I imagine if you're inside a hospital, that doesn't do you much good. When somebody is sick, you know that they're sick, you know that they're positive, and you know they need help. When New York City was in this situation that I think you're trying to describe, it was described by the New York Times as apocalyptic. What is the reality right now for healthcare workers on the front lines in Arizona?
It's the really high stakes. We're all, the nurses and respiratory therapists and other physicians I work with are amazing people. Everyone's going to keep showing up, and we're all going to keep, doing what we need to do to help everybody we can. But when you get to the point where you physically don't have space, or you don't have adequate numbers of nurses to staff beds, then, things get really, really tough. It puts all the healthcare workers in a really, it's another stressor where it's already stressful enough being in a situation where at any moment you could contract a potentially fatal virus. But then adding in mismanagement of the state. I was listening to your opening, and in fact, the state of Arizona is not slowing its reopening in any way. Our governor opened the state on May 15th, and we have been just going like gangbusters. The movie theaters are open now. Gyms are open. Golf, of course, that's something you can go do. And it makes no sense, because here we are in the hospitals trying to keep people alive, many of them on ventilators, filling up almost all of our ICU beds. And what we need from the governor, what we need from our leadership is an acknowledgement of this, and maybe require everyone in the state to wear masks in public, because they don't right now. It seems like nobody's taking it seriously, and it's really hard to see that and go into work every night for my night shift, and then see people running around, not social distancing, not wearing masks. And it's hard to kind of reconcile those things. And when our political leaders don't set a good example, as we've seen with the president and the federal response, if you can call it that, then, we have problems.
And it's so stunning, because it's literally the path toward what those leaders want in Arizona and Donald Trump is reopening, economic revitalization. It's what everybody wants. Right. Wearing a mask only gets you there more quickly and more safely. What would help? I mean, how do we kind of take this outside of the failed political leadership? And I mean, is it more press attention on it? Is it putting the story back at the top of our newscast? Is it getting professional baseball players to wear masks and say real men wear masks? I mean, what is the answer?
I think all of that. All of these things. We need examples. Just like when when I was working in the Obama White House, with regard to pandemics, as I recall, the president would get out there and say, "Hey, listen to Tony Fauci. He's got some important stuff to say." Enter scientists, enter researchers, and then they go from there. And the only thing President Obama did occasionally was to say what he said. Let's do that. And that's what we need. And professional baseball players, whatever. The people of Arizona, we can do this ourselves. We don't need to wait. We don't need to wait for the governor or anyone else to say to do it. If you want a hospital or an ICU bed available for one of your loved ones potentially having a heart attack or having some other non-COVID related emergency, if you want that hospital bed to be there for them, put a mask on before you go out. Or better yet, rethink whether you need to go out at all. Stay home.
Dr. Matthew Hines, I have a feeling this conversation is one we will have over and over again. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Stay safe. When we return, 5 months before the election and Donald Trump's re-election hopes are getting perilously close to the danger zone. Steve Kornacki explains next.
Residents looted and burned down numerous Black-owned businesses and homes. And just on top of all of this, obviously the pandemic, the COVID pandemic is still happening. Coronavirus cases are up in Oklahoma. This morning, the Tulsa World published an editorial entitled, "This is the Wrong Time and Tulsa is the Wrong Place for the Trump Rally." So with me now, John Rogers Jr. He is the chairman and the co-CEO of the Ariel Investments, one of for breaking news. Mayor, hang tight for me, sir. Let's go to Atlanta.
Captain Price of the Atlanta Police Department. I want to provide a couple of updates for you. Beginning with people who are experiencing homelessness in the city of Atlanta. Since June 1st, we have had shootings involving 3 people, and I want to provide